There you are. Hi.
Hi,
How
how's
are
it
you?
going?
Good. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Of course.
So it's your toddler's nap time right now, right?
I'm just trying to adjust the volume. I could hear you perfectly, and then I joined and it kind of disappeared a little bit. So let me see if I can get the volume back up. Okay, perfect.
All right. I want to encourage our listeners too. If you have a question, feel free to ask it. Give us a wave or a hello or a like to let us know you're listening.
Yeah.
And I just want to welcome Annette. Thank you so much for using your time today to educate us and tell us your story to inspire others and empower other women on their breastfeeding journey.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's an honor to absolutely be able to do this with you. Breastfeeding is something that I had no idea how intense it was or how connected I will be to to the entire process until I actually started breastfeeding, until I actually started fighting for breastfeeding. And after which I was like, I can't imagine life without doing this. And I can't imagine how many moms are either not aware of the benefits of breastfeeding or not able to or don't have the support or don't have the resources. And then that's how my journey basically, began.
Well, tell us a little bit about your journey. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, you did an excellent job. I couldn't even introduce myself the way you did. But first of all, I had my baby through IVF. So I started my pregnancy journey not the way anyone envisioned, right? Um, and at that point, I decided to do everything possible, not only to make the pregnancy a fruitful one through the end, but to make sure that I gave my baby the best because IVF is expensive. IVF is so mind consuming, and you lose basically everything in the process. You just get so involved in the process, and so things happened. I was working throughout my pregnancy, going through the 5 different boroughs in New York City, jumping between bus and train back and forth, and I was having these cramps, and I couldn't tell if this was just Braxton Hicks or if I was having serious problems simply because I've never been pregnant before. So how am I going to know what's right or what's normal? I ended up having my baby at 33 weeks, 5 days.
Wow.
Luckily, I'm 5'8" and my husband is 6'5", so she was big for her age. She was about 5 pounds 13 ounces, so she was the biggest one in the
Wow.
NICU. So we were lucky in that regard. So we only stayed in NICU for 10 days, which was short for a 33-week baby, but she'd already put on weight and they just needed to make sure she was okay. But emergency C-section, NICU. So day 1, my milk wasn't coming down. Day 2, colostrum was just dropping like little drops here and there, at which point they said, well, the baby needs to feed. So we're going to start giving the baby formula. And I was like, okay, but I'm trying here because my pregnancy didn't go as I planned. My birth process did not go as I planned. I didn't even get to take a maternity photo shoot. Like I went into preterm labor the day before my scheduled maternity photo shoot. So I never had like a pregnancy announcement or anything. So, and then being separated from the baby because I was upstairs on the 5th floor postpartum recovery and she was downstairs in the NICU. So I had all these factors working against me as to why I should breastfeed because I didn't go through natural labor. Baby was separated from me, C-section and all of that. So it took about 5 days before my milk came in and I was so devastated. I was determined. I asked every single nurse on the floor, like, do you have kids? What did you take? Like, what are, supplements that could help my breastfeeding, that could help me because I wanted to be able to give my child that benefit.
Yeah.
There were like 3 lactation consultants on the floor that rotated the time there. And they were so surprised that anyone, let alone a Black woman, was really disinterested in breastfeeding. And I asked them why. Like, why are you surprised that I'm interested in breastfeeding? And they were like, well, because it's difficult. I understand that. But a lot of women, they're trying to say it nicely, but they were basically saying a lot of women, who look like you may not necessarily, ask the questions you're asking, or may not necessarily have the support that you're seeking, or not even know that we here actually do this or want to go all the way. Because we have a closet full of formula that we can give the child.
Yeah.
Here, we can give you boxes and coupons to take home. So I was like, well, that's interesting because I want to do this. And I worked with them day in and day out. There were 3 of them in rotation. They showed me how to pump, and they showed me how to, hand express, and they told me what to do, warm baths, and warm showers, and just massaging with warm water. Slowly but surely, 5 days later, at the point where I was about to give up, the milk finally came in.
Wow.
After having all the odds stacked against me, by virtue of the separation, I was literally holding, every time I go down to the NICU, I will take her blanket, and the most recent blanket she used, and take it with me back upstairs, and I'll smell it, and I'll cry and do all the things, and just like dry pump, and my nipples were on fire.
Yeah.
But I did it. I did
That's
it so much.
Congratulations. I mean, that takes determination.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, I felt like it was one of the things I could control.
Yeah.
To the extent that I could. You know what I'm saying? Because I started feeling engorged, so I knew it was there. My husband and I had done crazy research about the benefits of breastfeeding. We had her the day COVID hit New York.
That had to be incredibly stressful.
It was so stressful. And we're not even wearing masks at that time, so we didn't know, what was really going on. Right now, you can't just be in the NICU all 6 hours like I was back then. So I was lucky in that regard. And I just wanted to provide her with the best protection, to the extent possible. And my husband already got to the process where he was like, well, formula is really not that bad. Like, he was already he was seeing the anxiety that was coming with all the work that I was doing, and he didn't want me to get, depressed about everything. But I was like, listen.
Wow. So once you were discharged from the hospital and your milk did start coming in, how were you able to successfully breastfeed after that, after you didn't have the lactation consultants there on your floor?
Well, you'll be surprised to know that some programs, my husband is a physician. He's an OBGYN, and he works in one of New York City hospitals. And they actually do have programs where if you're interested in breastfeeding, they'll provide breastfeeding support, nonprofit. So I had them come to my house twice.
Nice.
And they came with gift bags, bottles and pacifiers. They were so excited that somebody was interested. And this was February, and she told me that the last time she'd done a house call was November.
Wow.
But there are at least 3 births every day.
Really?
That just shows you the amount of information and help that's out there that people are actually not even interested at all in dealing with or being part of. So that was part of it. And then I came home. I was also, because I left work early because I didn't get to do on my training leave. So I was also working on emotion. So it was not easy. It wasn't the easiest process ever. But I did come home and, pumped during the day, probably from like morning to like 10. And then I went to the NICU, and I was in the NICU from noon to midnight. So I will pump, feed her. When she goes to sleep, I'll go to the nursing room, have my snacks, have my computer, work while I'm pumping round the clock. And I did that for about a week and a half before she finally came home.
Wow. What do you think was the most useful bit of information that you got that helped you be successful in the end?
It's the desire to, because I met with the chief neonatologist there, and he sounded and looked just like Barry White. I would never forget. And he said, if you do all these things which you're doing, which is the hot baths and warm tea and you're massaging, you continue trying to pump even if nothing's coming, soon you'll be flowing like the Nile. So I held on to what he said, and I just focused on that. And he was actually right, because our bodies are designed to do this, absent of course unusual circumstances, which does happen. I'm not discounting that at all. But so that determination was what made me realize that if you do desire to do this, then you can.
Yeah.
And all you need really is the information, is the resources, is the support, and it's for people to believe you when you're complaining about whatever it is you're complaining about. So I continued on, so much so that about when she was like 5 months, I developed oversupply.
Wow.
So I had to actually stop, pumping as much and take
Okay.
like peppermint tea and things like that, slowed down the production because it was getting out of control. But then obviously after my hormones kind of leveled out, then things got on a cruise level. And then after that, I continued till she was 14 months old, at least till I got the first shot of the Moderna vaccine, because I wanted to transfer the antibodies to her. But I still have some breast milk that I have expressed, that I still give her about once or twice a week in the freezer.
You mentioned that you had been maybe planning on donating your excess milk. Did you end up doing that?
I did not, because I'm greedy, but I almost did. I researched it. My husband was like, "Well, you can sell it." I'm like, $2 a bottle. Like, we're hustling, but come on. Like, my bio in Clubhouse is mom, wife, hustler. Right? I do a lot of things, right, to make ends meet. But I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. But I'd rather donate it. And then when we started realizing that COVID wasn't going anywhere, this was by like November, December, then I said, you know what, I'm just going to hold on to this to the best I can. But my next go around, after seeing the benefits of breastfeeding, like, she's 18 months and she's never had a cold. She's never had diarrhea. She's never had an ear infection. Now, granted, she's been somewhat at home, isolated, but I've been taking her for play gym classes with other kids for about 5 months now. We've traveled, I take her grocery shopping. She doesn't wear a mask, so I see the benefits, and there's that attachment that's there, that makes me want to be able to provide that to other women or the kids to the extent they're not able to.
Oh, that's great. Wow. Well, your story, for me personally, it was a struggle as well, and I thought about giving up. And I commend you for sharing the story, because it was actually someone else's story that encouraged me to keep moving forward past mastitis twice, or what my grandparents call milk fever. And
I had that too.
going. You did, yes. How did you find that? If we have a mom that's watching that's going through that, how did you move past that and continue to keep going through that pain?
Well, I unfortunately cheated, because my husband's an OBGYN, so this may not apply to everyone, but I self-diagnosed because a friend of mine has 5 kids, and I had posted something about, should I pump or should I take a nap? Like, I'm tired, I want to take a nap. And she was like, pump if you're engorged, because that can give you a fever. I was like, what are you talking about? Whatever, girl. 2 weeks later, I had a fever. I think I probably made the decision like at 10 o'clock to skip my usual pumping. And then I'm just going to, I just decided to go to sleep. And then the next day I woke up with a fever. And I thought it was COVID, because this was like April last year.
Yeah.
I thought it was COVID. I was scared because my husband, he used to come home and throw everything on the floor right at the foyer.
Yeah.
And basically have to wash his hand and shower before he can even touch her or touch me. So I thought some way, somehow. But it's presented with fever and body aches first. And then the next day, so I took Tylenol and I was like, okay, let's just watch it. And then the next day, I started feeling lumps. And then I realized, oh, maybe this is mastitis. So at which point I was like, babe, I think I have mastitis. And he was like, no, you probably just have a head cold or something. And he was like, okay. Later that day, I was still ill. So so I called my doctor at the office, and then they sent a prescription for antibiotics for me that's safe during breastfeeding. So I was able to bypass this. But the goal is for you to be your own advocate, even when you're surrounded by medical health professionals. Even my labor, I was at a deposition all day that day. I was in pain. I didn't understand why. And I was doing the questioning, and I had to push through. And then I came home and I was like, all right, I guess I'm having Braxton Hicks. I'm just going to lie down. And I laid down for a little bit, and I got up and I noticed that there was, stuff on the bed, which was unusual. So I called him, and he was like, okay, well, let's watch. Let's see. An hour later, there was a little more. And he was like, well, this happens a little bit. And I'm like, listen, I know this may happen. You see this every day. But for me, this feels different.
Yeah.
And whether you like it or not, I'm coming to the hospital. And he was at the hospital. So he said, okay, if you could just wait, pack up your bag, and then I'll come get you. And then he came. I did all that. And then he came and he got me, and we went to the hospital. And I was having contractions. And at which point turned out I was having a placenta abruption, which basically means a chronic placenta abruption, which basically means the placenta was detaching from the uterus. But they usually see it in emergency cases where there's like a car wreck or major trauma force. But I may have been having it for a while because it was chronic, right? And I ended up staying in the hospital for 5 more days, just because every day is important before the baby's born, before the baby was finally born. So I had to advocate for myself, even for my husband.
Wow.
Because otherwise he would have just thought it's the same thing he sees with all patients. You're fine, just a little bleeding here and there. You're okay. And I think you're frozen a little bit, Shannon.
Oh. Yeah.
Well, if I can hear you, so maybe it's just probably in my end, and maybe we'll come back.
I think so, because your part of the screen is twisting around there. Oh, there you are. You're back.
Okay. Okay, I think we're both back now. So, and that's the thing that I've realized about a lot of African American women, the ones I've spoken with, articles I've read, and even celebrities like Serena Williams or Beyonce have also complained about not feeling heard in the hospital. When you say, I feel like there's something wrong, I feel like this isn't happening quite right. And no one really understands why there's such a rampant poor treatment of African Americans when it comes to postpartum or the birthing process. But what we do know is that several factors in our health makes us more susceptible to heart disease, or, postpartum hemorrhage, or, complications giving birth, which puts us at a higher risk for maternal deaths, which puts us less likely to be even interested in breastfeeding. And the only way we can tackle the problem is by creating awareness. Awareness by what we're doing now. Other young women watching this can be like, oh, okay, well now, if she fought hard to breastfeed and she does want to breastfeed, maybe I can. Or maybe it's not going to mess up my body as much as people say. I mean, there will be a difference because you nourished a baby, but it's not to the extent where you're going to feel like you're an entirely different person. If anything, you feel more evolved as a woman. At least that was my experience.
Yeah.
And then also just knowing that, there's support out there. Hospitals have lactation consultants that are just sitting there and twiddling their thumbs because no one's using their services. Big cities like New York, Detroit, Atlanta have so many baby-friendly programs where you can actually reach out to specialists through the hospital, and they come to your house to make sure you're freezing the milk good. They give you pamphlets, they give you books. You can even get a voucher for a free breast pump.
Wow.
All of this is available if you're interested. And you're not going to know about all of this if you don't ask the questions, right? If you don't show that interest in breastfeeding. So.
And actually, that's a great lead-in because we serve the Florida Keys, and the islands are really spread out, and resources are scarce. And we have an internationally certified lactation consultant that helps people in the community that need it. And since COVID started, we started having our breastfeeding classes virtually so that it doesn't stop people from getting that information. We have one coming up September 4th, actually. But you're right. Like, we've got to get the information out there.
Yeah.
So people know it's available, because so many people that I talk to are surprised that they never knew it was here. So makes me happy to hear that it's also available in the bigger cities like that.
Absolutely. And I will tell you, I was a skeptic because I always say my mom had 7 kids. I'm the last of 7, right? And I always said my mom had kids and she didn't need a doula. She didn't need a lactation consultant. She didn't need a postpartum. She didn't need all of that. So when people said, oh, they're going to get a doula, they're going to get this, they're going to get that, I always kind of like, and this is to my detriment, I always kind of just looked at them the other way. Now I am like, get it. Get everything you can afford, and the ones you can't afford, find programs who's going to send them to you for free, because I was forced to do the entire motherhood postpartum experience by myself.
Oh, man.
Surrounded by 4 different hospitals in the New York City area. Every 25 minutes, there was like a siren blasting past. So I knew it was COVID. I knew somebody out there just like 50 feet away from me dying.
Wow.
So that anxiety and that trauma, my mom couldn't come visit me or come take care of me during that time because of COVID. And I'm learning a new baby, learning how to figure all this out. But how I was able to do that was through online resources. Mm-hmm. And I reached out. There were baby groups that I joined. Union Square Play had mommy and me classes. Hatch Online had online resource classes. Monica and Andy had classes. So I just scoured through my email. And I signed up for any and everything. The worst that could happen was that I'll be breastfeeding a baby and learning more about breastfeeding. And that's how it essentially happened. That's how I even learned about oversupply and undersupply and all those things. So the research is out there, you know, and I feel like in totality, I probably attended about 15 online free webinars. Maybe some I paid for anywhere or donated like $20 or $30 to them. Just so I could get somewhat comfortable, because I did realize, oh wow, there's a science to this. Mm-hmm. And learning the baby and learning everything about, well, not everything, but as much as I could about motherhood during that time. And then I talked to myself though, and I said, I'm able to do this because I'm an attorney and I'm about to start my own practice. Mm-hmm. What about all the other Black women out there who are not in my, you know, who are not attorneys, who maybe work at Best Buy, who maybe, you know, work at, you know, are janitors, or who are maybe they work in Broadway, or they're makeup artists. They don't have the time and the resources to sit there and watch these videos. Yeah. They don't have the time and resources to just be at home with their baby 24/7. So it's almost another factor that comes into place where it's almost like breastfeeding is also luxury. Because between pumping and storing your bottles, just imagine the trauma we have to do it, you know, trying to breastfeed at work, having to breastfeed in the toilet or in your office. Not everybody's in that socioeconomic class that's able to have access to all of that. And breast pumps are expensive. A good breast pump is anywhere from $200 to $400. You know, and then the accessories involved. And if you have a clogged milk duct or mastitis, you have to call in from work. Your employer's not going to be happy if you call in every 3 weeks of mastitis or with clogged milk duct. They'll take it from your sick time. And then if the baby's sick. So there's so much work that needs to be done. There's so many protections that need to be put in the workplace. Speaking as an employment attorney as well, to protect lactating mothers and to protect mothers in general, mothers to be, you know, and mothers who may need to take time off to do things to ensure that your familial unit is well taken care of. And these are the reasons why a lot of women just choose formula, because it's easier. Mm-hmm. They don't have the time and the resources and the energy after working long hours to sit and devote to all that it entails doing breastfeeding. Because let's be honest, breastfeeding is hard.
And it takes time.
It takes time. You know, there was a computation somewhere that said the average amount of time spent breastfeeding actually exceeds the amount of time working full time, because working Monday through Friday, you're sleeping at night, right? Breastfeeding, you're not. Because I pumped at 4 o'clock in the morning for 14 months. Wow. Because I wanted to get that fresh, you know what I mean? Because overnight you have I think it's prolactin, the hormone that produces breast milk, that makes you produce as much as you can during the night, which is the highest form of production. So I wanted to milk that literally. So I'll be up at 4, regardless of whenever I was up the night before. But if I had to get up and go and commute like I was commuting back and forth, I won't have the time or energy or temperament to do that. So I will find the next formula and give it to the child. So these are the things that we need to address: the socioeconomical barriers towards breastfeeding. We also have the trauma, the very present trauma of the wet nurses, as you may be aware of, dating back to the days of slavery, right? Where mothers were forced to feed, Black mothers were forced to feed the babies of their slave masters at the detriment of their own child, children were either killed or neglected. And this is a very present trauma, because some people still have great-grandparents whose great-grandparents told them that they were wet nurses. So because of that, there is that, you know, trauma and disdain when it comes to the relationship. That needs to be unpacked, and it needs to be addressed as well. So it's not a one-size-fit-all problem. It's multifaceted, multi-layered, but information, knowledge, and just sharing things and sharing everything that you know about this process is an excellent way to start, and support, you know,
Well,
support.
wow, what a story and what an interesting perspective you have. Thank you so much for sharing it with us, and
Of course.
that your journey and your struggles and your then successes in motherhood and breastfeeding empowers other women and encourages them to reach for help and to look for resources in their area, like Florida Keys Healthy Start Coalition. And I just think you
Yes.
edge.
Absolutely. You guys are doing an awesome job. I reviewed your website and just, your postings and everything. And for such a small community, I'm so glad people around you have that resource where they can reach out to you, and if they have any question or they need help, because you're right. A healthy start basically sets the tone for to the rest of the child's development and connection and just sense of well-being.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And everybody, if you want to check out Annette on Instagram, her tag is It's Annette A. And she's also got a website with motherhood tips and breastfeeding tips. And she shares her journey also in more detail on her Instagram as well.
Thank you so much. I feel bad that I have to go right now. I wish I could talk for the next hour or so, but I do have a TB,
Thank you so
18-month-old, and we're talking molars right now. So she is super fussy, but she's with I've been able to get someone to come in a couple of days a week, vaccinated, to just take care of her for a couple of hours here and there while I focus on work, because it got to a point where when you have a toddler, you can't really sit down and do anything, but we're still making it work.
Good.
We're
Good.
trying.
I think a lot of working moms at home know that with the virtual school and with young kids, we're all juggling so much. So thank you for taking the time to talk with us.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I look forward to having a
you.
continued relationship with you, and take care.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we're going to connect with Annette, and I just want to let you guys know that if you do need assistance in your breastfeeding journey, we are here. We do have an internationally certified lactation consultant to walk you through. We have the class starting September 4th, and that's by donation. As well, we are actually opening a milk bank location in Key West in September. And you don't have to live in Key West to donate your milk. You can live up the Keys. You can live outside the Keys. And if you're not close to Key West, we will actually give you a cooler that you can mail back to us. And this milk is going to provide nutrition for babies in the Nicu in the Miami area. So it's much needed. We haven't ever had anything like this, and we're really excited to kick that off. We're getting our freezer and all of our information September 9th, but you can start getting prepared now. Like, you can be screened now to donate milk. So thank you guys so much for listening.
That's awesome.
Thank you, Annette A, again, and you guys have a fantastic day.
You too. Take care.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.